Welcome, everyone. It's Monday morning, and we are working on the book, The Invocation of Presence. It's chapter 4, Second Wind Phenomena. And let's begin the session with a quick exercise at the beginning. And Bernie, you don't have to do that since you're driving now. So shortly, I'll be sharing my screen, and we'll be doing the attention sizer exercise. All right. And just an instruction before we begin. Place and hold your visual attention on the white circle as it revolves around the center of the square. Your goal is to successfully hold your attention on the circle for 3 full minutes. That's 3 full rotations. And it says you may not succeed for the first several weeks. Well, we all know about that. And I will say break when the exercise ends. You may begin. And break. Oh, looks like we lost somebody.
Michelle.
There we go. Just a quick um, announcement before we begin the class. Uh, if you want to be a part of the recording, you would either have to turn your video on or you can turn on your avatar. like this. And for this, you don't have to turn your video on. This can stay on. What this enables is it will show your box in the recording when someone else is watching. So you can be the part of the conversation, especially if you're contributing to the conversation. Otherwise, you won't show up in the recording, and your audio will be the only thing that will be present in the recording. So if you want to be present, you might want to add your avatar or just be on video, but that's completely up to you. And starting next week, we'll go live on YouTube. This week, we'll just record it and I'll upload it manually to the YouTube channel later on. And I'll send you guys link to the YouTube channel. So if you want to share it and forward it to somebody else, you may. And I think we are working with the book, The Invocation of Presence. You may correct me if I'm wrong. I was reading this, I read this whole chapter this morning just because I missed it last week and I wanted to touch base with you guys. So I'll need your help to find out where we stopped last week or if there's a
Yeah,
specific location that you want to continue from.
yeah, I marked it down. It's right at the paragraph, our work time is quickly running out.
On page?
Well, I've got a different format than you do, but so I'd say it's,
Oh, yeah, here we go.
yeah,
So let's begin from this paragraph. Anyone wants to start reading can get started.
I can read.
Yes, sir.
Our work time is quickly running out. We wake up one morning and our lives are over, finished. It is too late then for feelings of remorse to have any effect, except to serve as the source of force for one final invocation of presence. Awakening is not the end of work on self. It is the very beginning of work on self. A man who is not awake cannot work on himself, only on his awakening. What if we found ourselves at the end of life, bound to eternal existence on a deserted island, with no hope of rescue now or at any time in the future? If we could only bring one thing with us from this island of organic life to the deserted island to which we will be brought when we pass from this world, what would we bring? Answer.
This is not an imaginary exercise. Someday, soon, we will be brought to just such an island, and we must be prepared to exist there without those personal amusements upon which we have learned to depend for our artificial civilized sanity. To live among the dead, we must also be dead. At least, we must die to the ordinary preoccupations of the phenomenal side of the veil. When our presence blends with the non-phenomenal, the path divides itself in dark and light. G said, holding his two index fingers together, pointing up and then separating them slightly in an angle to form a V. Those who use the dark side of this force abuse without shame these petty little mental and emotional powers to take from organic life whatever they can to feed their sensual hungers. and to control events, immersing themselves still deeper in the momentum of organic life. Hopefully, after you have mastered this exercise, you will still have the courtesy and the sense to pay the bus fare. And I pass here. I just want to talk about this end of life content that EJ is talking about. It definitely brings about the sense of urgency about the whole situation, and it kind of makes me think about the time that I wasted, or the time that is yet to come, and how well that I intend to use my time here for the work, not just for my benefit, but for everybody's sake. So it definitely brings about a sense of urgency. And I pass.
What does this mean? Nikhil, can you go up a little bit?
Yes, sir.
So these two sentences, the first one is when our presence blends with the non-phenomenal, the path divides itself in dark and light. And even that previous sentence, to live among the dead, we must also be dead. At least we must die to the ordinary preoccupations of the phenomenal side of the way. That one maybe I understand, but this sentence I don't know at all. When our presence blends with the non-phenomenal events.
Well, I think when it says when our present blends with the non-phenomenal, it kind of seems that it's talking about the machine and the essential self becoming one, and becoming starting to become more alike each other. So uh, that's when you can see uh, what is good for your evolution and what is bad for your evolution. So you can start to do the things that work for your evolution, and you can start avoiding things that didn't work for you in the past. That's what I'm getting out of it.
Yeah, good point. Yes, thank you.
What do you think, David?
Bernie, are you there? Well, I think there's two parts to it. First of all, it talks about when our presence blends with the non-phenomenal. And what might that mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when we are in presence, I mean, it's if you sense what that is like, what does it feel like to be in presence? What does the world feel like? What are your sensations? What's the vibratory sensation at that moment? I think that's important to get a sense of what does it mean for you, okay? That's the first thing. Second thing is, what is dark and light? And let's see. And then in the next paragraph, he says, holding his two index fingers together, pointing up, and then separating them slightly at an angle to form a V. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, those who use the dark side of this force abuse without shame those petty little mental, emotional powers to take them from organic life wherever they can feed their sensual hungers. So doesn't that remind us of people using the powers that they find in the work? Let's put it that way, okay? The powers that they find in the work, but they use it for phenomenal gains, right? Does that terminology make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So if you're doing that, you've taken something from one sphere and you've brought it into another sphere. And to me, that's the beginning of what is a sin. Okay. And it's like you're using something from one realm and you're polluting it. You're using, I mean, in the world, we see spectacular greed occurring. And these people have, I would not say that they're in presence, but they have skills. Anyway, that's my initial take on it. Bernie, you have any other feelings about dark side?
No, no, your definition is perfect. I agree, 100%. Yes, it's is the idea of taking the power from one side and using it another is good, but it's part of the traps, no? Of the traps of this path. Thank
Part
you.
of the trap of this phenomenal world. What is trapped?
The essential self is trapped.
Well, no.
The trap would be again the sequence of the greed and all the stuff that we still have in us. So we're still following that trap of that ego, because we're getting from one part the essential self, whatever we're getting from that other non-phenomenal self, we're still using it in the regular, our animalistic instincts, again. So you're still in the trap, even though you got the sense or the feel of that non-phenomenal, we're again polluting it with our own the other thing. So you've still not gone beyond that ego, because now you're using that non-phenomenal again to fulfill your desires and everything.
I asked some Tibetan monks about this concept, and they said, I said, gosh, this person, people sometimes get to these enhanced states. They're incredibly smart. They have energy and power. And then they use it to dominate others and create the cults and all of those things that we hear so much about. And he just shook his head and he goes, yep, that's what happens. They get the beginnings of development. And that's what he said, the beginnings. And then they're captured by their own ego. And that's why the narcissism and so on of these individuals wins.
Yeah, good point, David. Good point. And I just wanted to add, I read that 12th chapter on the book that you mentioned. It's an amazing chapter. And if I want to add to that, I think again I would bring in the Tonglen practice. You know, if you get anything out of this journey, you know, I think it is better to just use it for the benefit of others and not fall to that trap.
You know, it's funny because when in the Tibetan tradition, there's these different layers, right? And like the highest, in a sense, is a Rinpoche, right? That's like very, very advanced. And as soon as somebody becomes the Rinpoche, the Dalai Lama says, "Okay, good, great. Now go start these 3 monastic orders in this country, and this country." Now you're running, you know, 1,000 people through the meditation techniques, through the silence techniques. You don't have time for yourself, your ego self.
Yeah.
And this, I feel like adding to this that again, to reach that state, like you have to be so pure to the sense of ego, you know, like you have to be so pure or so out of it that any abuse or any force or any power that you feel that comes through it, you could discard it. Like that is so powerful to be in that state, to be in touch with the non-phenomenal and not have a speck of greed or anything. Like, you know, to be that state is so that itself, like you think about it and you see that, you know, like I'm not ready for it yet, you know, or somebody else, because I still have a lot in me as impurity. So you suddenly sense that it cannot come to you, you know, until you're there. So it's just like a sudden realization that it has to be, you have to be so true to yourself, like pure in the sense, you know.
Mhm. I've realized that it's very easy to fall into these traps, at least in the beginning, because all you have is your ego in the beginning and hardly any presence. The ego is the dominating centrum uh, within us, and I've found out that even if you do go further a little bit, the ego is still there. It might not be that active, but it will pounce when it's got the chance. Uh, and I have been a victim of that many times, and I'm sure I will be in the future. But that's what I'm working with, and we're working with that.
David, may
Yes, sir.
I make a comment? There are many traps, many, lot of them, till the end. There is no end in reality to traps. But one trap that we Western people are very, let's say, fond of, it's an irony I'm making, is the struggle. No, the struggle. We struggle because we Christians or Catholics, struggle is something that is a paradox, but because when we struggle, we feel strong, and so that is. If you don't get the results, you become angry with yourself, and that all that movement is part of the ego struggling.
Mm.
Ego struggling is we want to achieve something, we want to get something. One master that talks very wisely about this, not only Robert the Rob, that is my new model, is this guy Rinpoche, the one who wrote the spiritual
Materialism.
yes,
Trungpa Rinpoche.
yes,
Yeah, exactly right,
and,
Michelle.
and So it's in reality, it's not the word exactly difficult. It's very subtle, the movement that we are trying to make. Very subtle because, of course, the um, the structure of the ego, whatever, that it's not an enemy. It's a structure that helps us to overcome things and to live. Um, it is it. He's always in guardian to make us feel that we are in the correct path. We are part of an elite, and if we struggle and struggle, we but it's not you know, what EJ compares this work with a musical instrument, learning a musical instrument. Of course, there is a part of discipline and day after day after day, but also it's something subtle that you are learning something that is a talent, so you cannot push that too hard. No, that is what for me is many of the traps that are there. No, so that's what I I want to share. Thank you. So one more. Um, this this Rinpoche, and in line with Robert the Rob, he calls that trap the super effort. No, the super effort, and we love the super effort because we are struggling. Yes, no, but that is a thing of the world also. No, it's not
Nice.
it's not it's
Nice.
not a
Well put.
yes. Okay.
That kind of struggle in that mode that you're talking about is of the world, you know, and we, maybe more Americans than anybody, you know, rugged individualism, just work harder, push faster, blah, 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 blah.
Yes, perfect. Yeah. That's it. Perfect.
So it's a trap. One guy that I spoke with, a teacher, he said, yeah, maybe it's good to have that kind of spiritual ego for a while, but if you work properly and then the other egos are mitigated, then that will be taken from you. So
the power to achieve is good, is good, is good for many
Yeah.
things. Power to achieve, but the power to achieve can easily become dominant over the other people. You start to consider the people that are not of your group. They are heretics. They don't mean anything. They are objects. It's the dominant ego that starts to work and feel proud, and in the name of God, in the name of the work, the story has shown Christianity, even Tibetans, or
you bet.
all the Abrahamic, yes, all those start with the best intentions, and finally heads are chopped easily in the name of God, in the name of the work, in the name of ideologies. So we have to be careful and laugh at our efforts in a way also, because wow.
You know what? Humor is a very good antidote to pure
Yes.
ego.
Yes. Yes.
Telling jokes.
Yes. Making fun of ourselves in a way, and our efforts, our desires, and I want, I need, like a dog, Anyway, that is what we are, also, no? So
Yes.
let's don't be ashamed, because it has a good side also. He has taken us here. Oh, anyway, I'm getting very emotional, so I have to laugh.
Yeah, good point. I just wanted to add one more. One of the morning meetings, somebody asked Jay about this, and I think there was a similar question to Bhagwan about this. That they said something to the effect that do we need to completely destroy the ego before we can achieve anything? And both of them answered no. That you don't. That's not the situation. Um, you will still need ego to do, certain things and what have you. It just should not be like a dominant force that directs everything in our lives. But they both said completely no to that answer, that there is no need to completely destroy the ego, completely, 100% remove it before we can achieve anything.
I recall. And I remember he had said that you cannot even get rid of ego 100%.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I so strongly remember that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I think that as long as you're in a body, there's a form of ego that exists. I was on a particular retreat once, and I came out and I said to the teacher, I said a number of things. Then I said one sentence. I said, "I'm really worried. Am I on the path? What does it mean to be on the path? Am I working?" And he goes, "As long as you can continue to ask that question, you'll be in good shape." So I continue to ask that question.
Oh, wow. I can see all hearts around Bernie's video. I don't know how you did that, but cool. I think our ego is our ally, and it is one single component within ourselves that brought us to this school or to these ideas. And I think even along the path, the ego also gets transformed in some ways. And obviously there are benefits and disadvantages of that too.
But again, like when I see this dark side of this force, I feel that until you have 100% honesty to yourself, it does not happen. Like, you have to be so true to yourself. So I don't know about the ego factor or whatever, because my first initial thought was, when I saw the non-phenomenal, was that you have to be completely rid of it. But now I realize, like, listening to Nishant's and Bhagwan's, I realize that that's not possible. But the most important is to be true to yourself, like to be 100% honest, So I think that's one thing which I got out of it.
Good.
One other thing that comes to mind is a concept, in Hindi it's called Vivek. Vivek is where you try, start what is called, where there is some understanding that this is the right thing to do and this is not the right thing on this path. Maybe that's maybe a reference to that dark and what is it? The light and dark, the two paths.
Hmm. Should we continue reading?
Yes, I can read.
Go ahead.
Police reported ahead.
What about this previous? We read already those who use.
Yeah, you may read if you want to again. No worries.
Okay. Those who use the dark side of this force abuse without shame these petty little mental and emotional powers to take from organic life whatever they can to feed their sensual hungers and to control events, immersing themselves still deeper in the momentum of organic life. Hopefully, after you have mastered this exercise, you will still have the courtesy and the sense to pay the bus fare. To blend perfectly with the flow of force, it must be annihilated. And if after annihilation we can continue to function in a work way, which is to say, continue to serve with the circle of invocation regardless of our organic hungers, then perhaps we can learn to work for the benefit of the non-phenomenal side of the way. If organic hungers within us are still alive, the invocation of presence is interrupted. And we are not dead, not annihilated. We have not died before our ordinary organic death.
Watch out.
Someone else want to read?
I could read. In response to a question from one of the French members of the group, he said, sometimes when first practicing the diffusion of vision, portions of the phenomenal world may disappear. When in doubt, go limp. Soon your vision will adjust. The second wind of vision, the unveiled vision, is as a man ought to see, not imaginary phenomenal effects, but in the spectrum of the non-phenomenal kingdom, which is ordinarily obscured by the G commented to a member of the group who was doing some needlepoint during the meeting that this was an appropriate task to be working at during such assemblies, and that among the work communities, this was very commonplace. I'll pass. Should I finish this page?
Sure.
He added that handcrafts such as knitting, crocheting, sewing, weaving, and prolonged sex are useful moving central tasks to combine with meetings. We didn't know how literally to take this last, admittedly very appealing advice, so the majority of us remained dressed and as before.
Swati, would you like to read?
Yes. Real knowledge only comes in special states and can be transmitted and understood only in special states, he explained. Handcrafts set the stage for second wind if efforts are made to achieve extreme attention to detail. Just before the second wind of personal annihilation is achieved, a sense of imminent failure will descend upon you like a vulture on an inattentive mouse. This artificial emotional barrier, the sensation of apprehension, is a safety factor. Before we achieve anything serious, we may decide to stop for our own safety, realizing that the body could collapse and die, or worse. And so, certain invocational methods are introduced only at advanced stages in the preparatory work initiated by voluntary initiation, and fortunately for the continued momentum of the organic machine, the second wind of personal annihilation is not easily achieved. This process of voluntary self annihilation is known as the 10,000 deaths because each time personal annihilation is almost near, we draw back and the veil invariably falls, except for the last time, and we must begin again. And I pass.
So this barrier that EJ is talking about, uh, is that the barrier of the chronic? Is this something similar to that? Because it sounds like chronic would be um, an artificial emotional barrier. Maybe not an emotional barrier, but definitely a barrier uh, to the waking state.
So I think he's talking of every time you reach that state of the waking state, there is the ego which will draw you back. And like there'll be thousands of thoughts, going through you. Every possible thought that can pull you away from that knowing factor. And then, one of them will draw you back, like whatever that factor is. One will be that factor which will tell you that, oh no, you cannot die, you cannot die. And that factor will, one of that thoughts will pull you back, and then you'll go back to the regular cycle. And then again, there'll be that one state which will be so prime, so at that height that you feel that, oh, this is so close to enlightenment, but there'll be again like thousands of flickering thoughts, and then one of them will tell you, no, you still cannot be there, and this will keep happening and until the last moment, but there's so many thoughts of egos which will take you to that point.
Mm-hmm. Maybe there's another way to define this, like this artificial emotional barrier. The mental centrum wants to have like a comprehensive definition, what does this really mean? What if you find your own individual small little baby artificial emotional barriers? The paragraph before it just says, just before the second wind of personal annihilation is achieved, the sense of imminent failure would descend upon you like a vulture on an inattentive mouse. Really a beautiful phraseology, by the way. This artificial emotional barrier so let's say, for instance, go ahead, Nishan.
No, sorry. I was just saying, is this reference to panic reaction when we try to do something? Um, you
Sure.
know,
Yeah.
something I never learned swimming as a kid. I learned it as an adult. But what happened is, anytime I would try to let go the water, and my instructor kept telling me that just let go, you're not going to drown. But I seriously felt that if I let go, I am going to die. I will die.
Absolutely.
Even in a 4 feet pool.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
that's an example of a very safe mechanicality that operates in spite of the mental centrum, feeling centrum. He gets near water and there's like, ugh, okay. That is the mechanicality arises. And it's a perfect time to observe it. That is an artificial emotional barrier, a sensation of apprehension. And then EJ says, is a safety factor. Sometimes it truly is, right? You get too close to the edge, or in some cases, you're walking down a set of stairs and like, maybe you get afraid, or something like that. But watch it. That is a artificial emotional barrier. Sometimes it's useful, but sometimes it's there from just habit. If somebody starts to say something to you in a particular tone of voice and you start to panic, that is a artificial emotional barrier, and maybe it used to be a safety factor. Because if you didn't act properly, your uncle was going to yell at you. Right?
Yeah. That brings back memories, David.
Exactly. And so you would behave carefully, but that same artificial emotional barrier exists in you. It's like a physical wiring, it's a neurological statement. Self-reflection diminishes its power.
Hmm.
Yeah, good point. In ABD, there is a phrase which says it's okay to feel fear, but not to panic.
Yeah. So what's the difference between fear and panic, everybody?
Well, panic is the reaction to the fear.
Okay.
That's a response to what we feel at that moment. And we may feel fear among many feelings from time to time, but reacting to those, the way you react, the way you decide to react to those feelings, determines the outcome.
So I think I sometimes not, but most of the times I go through that situation of fear and panic and the anxiety. Like I still sometimes try to go back like where it started from my childhood. But say, for example, in the job, something happened, say my manager said something, and I immediately, like, that goes very deep inside. I get frightened somewhere. I get fear of like maybe losing the job, some kind of insecurity. And if I trace back in the school days also, like, I was in residential school and something happens, I had a fear that I would be expelled from the school. And same thing, like, I think, and that is a panic kind of thing, like, in the job, right, currently, like, in this job also, and all the job I work till now, I always have that fear, so I don't know where the roots, or sometimes I see somewhere something is lacking, but the fear and the panic, it's always like going together. Even though I try to remain conscious in that, but I lose my grounds when I'm like I panic. So I'd say like panic is like what Nikhil said, the reaction, and it's not just the reaction, but it's I mean, it's on the high scale, like, the panic is more than you just react. It shakes you, like, in and out. Your being is like shaken.
So take it as a opportunity to observe the machine working within you. There's a trap in modern psychology, and Bernie, I think, fell off, but he would have more background too, that if you could just get to the root of it, then it'll be gone, right? I don't think so. I think that it's kind of hardwired until you can gently change it. You don't try to change it, you observe it. And that's called cleansing radiation. But you have to actually allow yourself to observe it. Like, for instance, Swati and Nishant, or when you have the panic, you have the fear of the water or the fear of getting expelled or however it works. You go, gosh, I am panicking. I am afraid. No, you're not. Fear is operating within your machine. I am not angry. Anger, is there. If you can begin to swallow that little pill, and because it's not I am angry or I am upset, it's the fear is, look at the fear. The second you can do that, is the moment you begin to experience, I am not that.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful thing that you all are already observing it. I mean, some massive 99.9% of the population won't even look at it. That's just the fate of being on this planet. But you are. So, but I'm just very strong on this thing right now. I am not angry. There's anger. And people will say to you, oh, yeah, she gets really angry, or he gets really angry, or he's an angry person. That's their point of view.
So it's about not identifying with the emotion
In your own self, though, Nikhil,
in my
it's
own self.
there it is. Ugh.
Yes.
You're starting a new set of classes this week, right?
Yes, sir.
You're going to walk into the classroom. If you're marginally human, which you may or may not be, but you're going to walk in, and these are small, intensive classes, right?
Yes.
4, 5, 6 students, maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you're going to walk in, there's the teacher, there's the students. your ego is going to begin to panic very quietly, and you have a lot of mechanisms to buffer it. How am I going to, what do they think of me? What is he going to think of me? Am I going to be able to impress him, impress her, impress him? You're very fortunate. So you walk in the classroom, and can you say at that moment, I am not that? Even while you're listening and taking notes, I don't know if people take notes anymore, but if you're taking notes, can you be in presence while you're listening to an advanced lecture on electrical power flow of some darn sort, right? Oh, no, it's too complicated. You really have to pay attention. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, I think I will keep that in mind when I go to class this week, and I'll get some data, and I'll come back with some data next week. See what happens.
It's interesting. Whenever you're starting something brand new, it's always a fascinating opportunity.
Yeah. Well, when you were talking about the identification part, that reminded me of my experience this morning. I was uh, I was going through the attentionizer exercise before we began the meeting, uh, and I went through some phases while doing the exercise. In the beginning phase, my mind started chattering, and I started thinking about all the stuff. Started thinking about this meeting. I started thinking about the day, and then I went to this another phase where I realized, hey, that's not me. Whatever the thoughts that I was having, that's not me. So I started separating myself from that, and a sense of freedom enveloped me, which lasted a very tiny second. Uh, and I saw how identification can trap you, and there is this other side that is available for you at all times. So that's something that I'm going to be practicing this week as well, of not identifying.
So I think it just clicked my mind to like what David said, going to the roots. So one thing I even experienced a couple of the times, like I am into the very like deep sleep, and I'm fully awake. And then I get some kind of feeling that I'm losing my grounds, and I'm thrown back to the thing where my being is asking, who am I? A lot of people like J. Krishnamurti and the Osho and a lot of have given those exercises and stuff to work upon. So in very deep sleep, from nowhere, suddenly I get thrown back to that state of who am I?
Okay.
And then when I cannot find the answer, I'm fully awake, but still
No. There's no answer, first of all. Go back.
Right.
Okay. Go back maybe a couple of pages to the paragraph that says the catalyst.
Oh,
We're a little bit over time, but let's just take 1 minute on this very important point. We're very close. There we go. The catalyst is sometimes called the Holy Ghost. These are Western terms. They're Catholic Western terms, but we talked about that last time. Holy Ghost has consciousness, whereas grace, divine as it is unconscious, automatic. So my interpretation of the Holy Ghost is that there's Swati blasting away, whatever, and then suddenly this thing comes up. Who am I? Right? Am I getting that right, Swati?
Correct.
Okay. That to me is the Holy Ghost in her.
Oh.
overcome with the world, am I doing okay? Am I going to get fired later today? All that stuff. And then this little thing comes in. Who am I? Where did that come from? That came from the hard work she's done, and in my opinion, in this life and other lives too. I mean, that this is, it's a seed that's in there. Okay. So,
But the thing I wanted to make it is, I get so frightened, David, that I even remember that this is the point where, like, we strive lifetime to get into that particular moment, to get that moment, that your being is asking from, like, with everything, that it's just the matter of existence, that who am I, and you don't have any personality or any persona to stick onto it, but then you simultaneously lose your grounds and you are thrown back, and it's almost about to that I would be like, I feel like I'm on the one shore, but I don't see the other side of it, and
no,
I'm
yeah,
frightened. It's so frightening.
it is.
I cannot explain how frightening it was. And one of such experience happened back in 2011, and I was like, I think I lost that moment in fear. If I would not have fearful and I would have taken the flight, it would be a different experience.
Well, isn't this like a precursor to annihilation? When you get close to the ego's fundamental value system being challenged, it's a form of annihilation. Of course, it's fearful. But allow yourself to hold the fear for just a moment and watch it. So, anyway.
Thank you, David. It's very helpful, because one such experience happened just 2 weeks back. I was taking like afternoon nap and it happened from nowhere, but I lost it. So,
Got it. So practice in calm times to increase that little seed of presence, little baby seed of presence. And then it's going to get a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. So anyway, thank you, Nikhil, and everybody for helping us out, getting us to this point.
Wonderful.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for coming in. Look forward to seeing each one of you next week. Bye-bye, Michelle. Good to see you.
bye everyone.
Hey,
Thank you, everyone.
bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
See you next week.
You bet.